I mentioned briefly, I mentioned last night that I was at the board meeting. What happened is, right in front of the school, Mr. John Washam Jr. lives. He is the son of the person this school is named after. And last year, unfortunately, his wife passed away. And one of the things we talked about is how we could honor the family in a positive way beyond just a tree or a plaque or something like that. That would be something that would be part of the legacy of this school way beyond all the time we're gone. And what we came up with was trying to name our media center. So we had to go through a series of things. We had to write letters to the board. I had to ask Mr. Wood to write a letter from the PTO, and I had to write a letter. And then we eventually, last night, got on the docket to get approved. And it was approved 8-0 to rename our media center after Miss Violet Washam. So there's going to be more information coming out about that, of how we're going to celebrate it, how we're going to post it, and things of that nature. But it was a great honor for Mr. Washam. He came to the event with me last night, and if you could have seen his face, it was worth a million words. So he was exceptionally excited and proud for his wife. So we're moving forward on that. So that's what I was talking about in regard to why I was at the board meeting last night. We have one staffing thing, and just kind of follow up with Mr. McClure's comments about the RIF staffing. Just to kind of give some background history on us as a school, we as a school have really not had to deal with a lot of losing staff because we continue to grow. Most of our losses have been to really just oddball kinds of things and really life experiences. Rarely, if ever, are we losing teachers to other school sites. We are losing teachers to making life decisions, being stay-at-home moms, following a husband or a wife to a new promotion in a new area. So we have had a lot of change over the last 2 or 3 years, but it has been not really tied into reduction in force. The fear was a few years ago when our TAs, our teacher assistants, we thought we were going to lose them all. That was the time when it really blew up as a big concern. You know, last year we were held pretty harmless. Actually, we were held harmless, and this year we're held harmless as well. But we do have a large number of new staff, so I can easily see why people would think that we're kind of just flushing people out and bringing new folks in, because every single year it seems, you know, between 8 and 12 new people walk into this building, but it's, you know, they're really just life decisions. Another thing you'll deal with at this school, if you haven't been here before, is maternity leave. It's unfortunate, you know, when you have a school that's mainly women, they have babies, and you know, I have children, so my wife's had babies, so it's one of those things where you can't really transfer job responsibilities like in another job, where you can say, you know, hey Sally, I need you to take this person's responsibilities. Well, you're talking about a class of kids. So what our goal is that we always try to get a certified teacher in those rooms, and we've done a really good job of getting people that have been teachers in the classrooms for these short periods of time. So right now I have 3 out. 2 will be coming back at the start of October, which isn't too bad. 1 comes back in December, but I will promise you it's probably inevitable that I'll have another one in the spring. It's just normal. You know, we have a staff that's kind of gone through their first child and they're getting ready for second children. So it's usually a 2 to 3 year window where everybody's kind of rotating in and out. So that's it's an unfortunate nature of the beast, I guess, in regard to that. So be prepared for that. The only other staffing issue we have right at this particular moment is, and I sent this to the 5th grade parents either yesterday or Friday, depending on the teacher, is that Miss Rice, who is really only here for less than a month, is going to be leaving us to become an assistant principal. Miss Rice had her administration degree. She was going to be teaching 5th grade science and social studies for us. She had been looking, and she finally got called about 2 weeks ago. So we do have a new teacher starting in her classroom tomorrow, has 3 years of experience from Florida. She just moved up here with her husband. So we have another experience. Her name's Katie Herritt. It's H-E-R-R-I-T. She's already been here to the school, visited the classroom, visited with the kids. So she's excited and ready to go in that regard. So we're pretty excited to have her on board. So though we have to make a transition with our kids, it's not as bad because it's a short period of time versus waiting even longer. Any staffing kinds of questions? Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
I'm very new. I'm new to the state and I'm very new to the school.
Okay.
And I noticed that on the buses, there are no bus monitors.
That's correct.
Is that more due to budgetary constraints, or is that just a choice?
I've been in the school system for 20 years, and to my knowledge, we've never had bus monitors in Charlotte. I know smaller systems do, so I'm not sure it's really a budgetary thing. I just don't, I'm not sure that it's ever been something that's been on the agenda for how to spend the money. So that's really the best answer I can give you from my experiences in the system. Now, the other question some people ask, I thought you were going to ask seatbelts. That's something that they don't have to have either. The only time we put child restraints on a school bus is if we have a child that has an individual education plan or something like that where they can't stay in their seat or they're too small. We have some students that maybe were a premature birth that are just tiny. So we have had those child restraints before, but I've never seen the monitors, but we do have them where I'm from in Pennsylvania.
Right, and
yes.
in Rhode Island they have them as well, so it was different.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're Adrian's mom.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi. Rhode Island.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Kabuka.
Oh, question regarding the trailers out back.
Yes.
From what I understand, the AC controllers have been locked up due to budget and economic issues, and it's quite chilly. So how often will somebody come and make the changes appropriately for weather?
I think the mobiles that you're talking about are 5th grade, right?
Well, both my kids are outside and they say it's kind of cold. So.
Yeah, I think some of that's teacher choice because I think they can, but the 5th grade ones I think are locked because they had, 3 of them had humidifiers put into them. And what was happening is a lot of our teachers crank it even lower and it was creating humidity, or not humidity, but moisture in the classrooms, and it was creating mold. So they try to lock them up. But what they do school-wide, and I'll check on that because I was not really aware of being too cold. Usually people are too hot. Is that at a certain time of the year, the school building is computerized. We have no access anymore. Like in the old days, I used to have a little key that I would walk down to every room and I could open this little thing and I could mess with them, even though they didn't like us to. I would go in there and play with it. But now you're computerized, so basically it's run through a computer bank, and then on X day, they click over to heat. So in the building, there's a set date. They just email me and say on November 20th, we're going to heat. You know, and then they click it back on in the spring. So I'll check on the mobiles because I'm not sure about that. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have the answer. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
The core knowledge curriculum, it started now?
The Common Core?
Yeah.
Yes, the Common Core has started. Common Core are the national standards that have been released by the federal government. And what the good thing about the Common Core is that it's going to create some consistency across the country for the states that are doing it. Right now, 48 states, I think, are participating in it. And it has started. It started actually at the end of last year with K2. This is the first year 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are starting it. Yes.
Was it a big transition? Or
oh, it's a huge. Oh, it's a huge transition.
Okay.
You probably won't see it as a parent. Teachers are feeling.
Yeah.
It's a total different way of having to go about their curriculum.
Okay.
It's all new. So planning has had to change. How they're aligning their objectives has had to change. The areas that they're focusing on has to change. It's not as kind of surface level. We have to dig much deeper into which is a good thing. Yeah. Again, the writing is more persuasive in elementary school and argumentative, meaning not argumentative is like you're fighting with somebody,
right.
But being able to come up with a standard and then giving evidence of why you believe that. It's not, well, I believe that, you know, X person should be the president of the United States because my mom said that to me. It's more of, you know, I think this person should be the next president of the United States because of Bing, 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 and Bing. So you're creating evidences where you're going back, teaching kids to actually use the text to go back and be able to defend their answers. And that ties across all subject areas. So they're having to learn how to manipulate it. So that has been probably the largest anxiety our teachers have faced. And on top of all that, the way our schedule was set up before school started with all of our meetings that we had to do, they didn't have as much time to really dig into it unless they did it on their own. Some did, some didn't. So that will be probably the biggest challenge this year for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, anything else? Yes?
I wanted to find out your policy that you do. I would assume that you are the one that makes the schedule K through 5 regarding physical activity and recess time, and how some grades, I think K through 2, get the normal recess with their lunch and then maybe an additional recess, but like 3 through 5, some of them have working working, snack time, but they are only allotted the 30 minutes. And I know that that's the North Carolina standard, is the minimum of 30 minutes physical activity / recess time K through 8.
Okay.
But I'm trying to figure out how do you as a principal make the schedule, and why do like K through 5 not get an additional 15-minute stretching playtime or whatever? I mean, like 4th grade has their physical activity / recess from 9:25 to 9:55, and that's it for the rest of the day.
Well, then they have specials later on.
Well, yeah, I know that, but that's still, I mean, PE, you know, with Mr. Higgins and stuff, that's you know, physical activity. But when you're in like art class and that's more of structure, I guess is what I want to say. So how do you, as a principal, align that up and make it? I don't know.
You know, we have snacks should be working in all grades. So that some aren't. Maybe kindergarten may not be right now because they can't probably do 2 things at once yet, but eventually they will. Everybody else should be a working snack because you can really, you know, pick as you work. So to me, that should be the philosophy across the school in K-5. It's not just 15 minutes kind of a break time. My hope is teachers will be using kinesthetic things in the classroom. For instance, in kindergarten, they're dancing and, you know, doing letters, and that should really perpetuate itself in all grade levels. You don't see it as much in 3-5, unfortunately, but they do have opportunities to work in groups and get up and stretch, you know, when they're working in their science experiments and different things. We give 30 minutes of physical activity every single day, like you said. In 6th, 7th, and 8th, they don't get that. They don't get any. You know, I'm saying at my son's school. He gets 10 minutes after lunch that if they eat their lunch real fast, they can go out and stretch their legs. But I think that's maybe a school decision. But beyond that, we kind of I try to break the day up. We try to put all of our instructional time in the morning, if at all possible, at least as much as we possibly can. So in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, because they switch classes, we kind of have them blocked in there, and then we give them breaks when we can throughout that, but we try to spread out their breaks. So that when I look at breaks, I'm saying physical activity, lunchtime, which is an informal time, even though they're sitting, and then also your special area time, which is more of an informal time. So you try to spread those 3 events out. But the reality is, there's just not time and space to have more breaks in the day in regard to what we're doing academically. So that's really my best response in that regard. But I know that doesn't answer your question the best way you want, but I'm not sure any other way to answer it. All right. Anything else? And then I have to close shop.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I walked in on the tail end. I heard a little bit about when you guys were talking about Kindle.
Yes.
Okay, I have a kindergarten who absolutely loves to read, but I don't know if he's not. I read on an iPad, and so he's watching me read on the iPad, and he's reading books, and he's starting to get like, well, I want an iPad. I guess, what's your professional opinion? I want to keep the books in school. I want to keep reading books.
You know, honestly, I think as an iPad, kindergartens, I would say let them use yours, but I wouldn't let the boys have their own yet for an iPad. You know, there are cheap, I mean, I understand he wants to replicate and mimic mom and dad, which is cool, and I would want to emphasize that. You know, there is a cheaper version of the Kindle out. It's only like $70. It's about this big. That's what my daughter has.
How old is she?
She got it when she was at the end of 1st grade. She got it. But you know, I think they'll be fine. You know, the main thing I would monitor is you want the joy of reading. It's really not the tool as much as it is the joy. So with boys sometimes, you may need to have little tricks to get them more motivated to do that. So maybe you allow them, you know, what I started on mine, my son has my old one. So I didn't go out and buy my son an iPad. He paid for part of his. I said, listen, I'll sell you my old one so Daddy can get a new one. And you know, I thought it hit from a multiple, you know, he had to save his money. I thought an iPod Touch was too small. If you're going to read off of it, might as well use an iPad. You know, so but you know, I also started off by downloading, like on my iPad, I have hundreds of books, kids books, and there's hundreds of them out there for free. I started creating folders for my kids on my iPad. So when I read to them at night, I would use my iPad. and I just tried to use it that way to start them off. So I think personally it's probably a little early. I'm not saying that there's not kindergartners that have it. I know there's kindergartners that have iPads. I know there's kindergartners that have telephones. Not mine, but they're out there. So I would just say, if you can give them the opportunity to experience some of it on there, plus the regular book, the neat part to kids in kindergarten is that they're interactive. So to allow a child to touch it, and it moves, and there is some really, really engaging children's stuff out there that's free. And I'm not a big proponent of paid apps in a lot of cases, so most of what I have is free. And they're out there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of things that you can either, you could read to them, and they still can manipulate it at the same time, or they can start to play with a little bit on their own. So I think that's really your personal